Hello, everyone, and welcome to this Energy Quick Chat, where we rub minds with stakeholders and players in the energy market. Now, North Africa is a region with significant oil and gas resources, with production accounting for a major share of its GDP and government revenues. However, the region's oil and gas sector is facing a number of challenges, including declining reserves, political instability, and the global call for an energy transition. Joining me now from London to discuss this is Aly-Khan Satchu. He is the CEO of Rich Frontiers Management and an expert in the African investment climate. Hello, sir. Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, let's dive right in and talk about the investment markets in the region. How much investment flows is the North African oil and gas sector attracting amid ongoing global geopolitics and the global call for clean energy transition?
So we've seen a significant new impetus for oil and gas extraction in North Africa that's arisen from the situation in Ukraine, and particularly Europe has been seeking to replace supplies from the Russian market in particular. And therefore, one of their first focuses was on the North African supply line because of its proximity to Europe, its proximity to the Mediterranean economy. So we've seen a lot of impetus in that direction. But as you said in your preface to this interview, there's significant instability in some of these countries, which means that the investment flows are not flowing smoothly into those countries. But just to give you an idea, the main suppliers of oil and gas from North Africa are obviously Libya, but we haven't seen much increase in oil production there. But Libya's crude oil is sweet. It's sought after by the majority of refiners because the value addition is quite significant. Algeria, big supplier of gas into Europe. Egypt recently discovered gas, as you know. And then on the other side, we have Morocco, which has been leading in the renewable space, the idea of supplying, for example, solar energy, but that still has not yet come on stream. But that gives you an overview of the area.
Now, so what are the opportunities for North Africa to deepen its footprint as a key supplier of hydrocarbon content to Europe and beyond?
So I think the main opportunity is the European one because of proximity and because of that, the investments can be made reasonably quickly once they've been agreed. So I think the opportunity if I go from east to west, Egypt, of course, has found significant gas, but it's a huge economy and probably can consume a lot of the gas that it's discovered, but will also be supplying gas to the European markets. You've got Algeria, already a big supplier. I think there has been a lack of investment by Sonatrach in that space. So there's an opportunity to ramp up supply. If you look at Spain's economic performance, it's outperformed the rest of Europe, in part because of the supplies from this North African region. So I think Algeria, big opportunity to ramp up. Libya, I think we need more political stabilization before you're going to see significant investments. But once that does happen, that will be a catalyst for, I think, major investments. It is a fossil fuel prize, Libya, in many respects. And then if we go further west, we've got the Moroccan situation, where I think that's a story about renewables. But also don't forget, if we go south, we have Nigeria, we have Niger, we have countries which have a lot of potential. But again, in the Sahel belt, as you know, it's a problem about the political instability, and that's hindering investment into those countries.
Now, I know you have spoken a bit about the fastest growing energy business in some of this region, but I wanted to talk more about it. Which of these countries in the region are making the fastest growth in the energy business, and why is that?
So I would say that the fastest growth in the energy area is really a country like Morocco. I think you've got this other impulse coming out of Europe, which is around renewable energy. I'm not as bullish about the ability of renewable energy to replace fossil fuels. I think that's a myth, a media myth. And increasingly, we're discovering it's a myth. I think there is a positive future for fossil fuels for the foreseeable future. I don't see how wind and solar are going to be able to make even a dent into the fossil fuel situation and demand for it. We see tremendous growth in places like China and India. All these people want to drive a car. It's not all going to be electric. The grids would collapse. So I just want to make that point. In terms of fastest growth, I think, Morocco has an environment which is conducive to foreign investment, and therefore, they are managing to capture this opportunity that is there in the renewable space. So they've got this enormous solar farm they're building, which is then going to pipe electricity into Europe. And I think they are currently, from what I can see, best positioned. As I said before, Libya, it's a political stabilization story. Once that happens, then definitely we'll see a surge of investment coming in there. And we already have big players in that country, like Eni, for example. And therefore, it's not a step too far for them. I think if I go a little bit south and go to somewhere like Nigeria, it's really important Nigeria ramps up production, because the whole of the reform program is predicated on increased earnings from fossil fuels. If that's not going to happen, then I think you might as well pass the last rites on this current administration. The bet in Nigeria by President Tinubu is that he can ramp up production, and therefore that's going to be very key. We didn't even talk about somewhere like Niger, which is supplying not fossil fuels, but uranium, which powers nearly half of the light bulbs in France. Tremendous potential there as well. Then you have other various smaller countries in that Sahel belt, which do have fossil fuels to supply and desperately need to do that in order to improve their economies. But again, that's a political security problem. So, the challenge for us on the continent is to create a conducive environment which demands a degree of political stability. And without that, that's a condition precedent of winning the investment fight, as it were.
Now, could we step back a bit about when you were talking about the renewable energy sector? What are you seeing on the ground in terms of investment and projects in the northern region?
So in the northern region, I think the biggest current project on the renewable energy front is in Morocco. This is an enormous solar farm they're building, it's very ambitious, and it's seeking to supply solar-based energy into the European markets. And that's the biggest single investment that I have seen. But there is a lot of interest. If you measured chatter and talk, you would think there is a tsunami of investment coming. But as I said, translating that chatter into real action on the ground is a different matter. But obviously, you don't have to be a rocket scientist to work out there's a lot of sunlight in northern Africa. There are some areas which are windy and can supply wind power. But as I said, I think this is a 90% story about fossil fuels. 10% is about renewable energy so far. But obviously with the Europeans in this sort of very renewable energy frame of mind, it's an opportunity for African countries to capture that interest, particularly with them so dismissive of the Russian energy story. If you cut Russia out, there is a massive gap of global supply, any way you care to look at it.
Great insights there, Mr. Aly-Khan Satchu, CEO of Rich Frontiers Management. Thank you so much for speaking with us about the energy landscape of North Africa. It's good to listen to you, sir. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
That's it on our Energy Quick Chat this week. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I am Justina Okechukwu. Bye for now.